Employed in a cursed Arctic warehouse, a sinister secret, only 3 words to survive the darkness. Sarah stepped through the creaking steel doors of the warehouse. The air inside hit her like icy fingers. She had always cherished the peace of Winter's Vale's starry nights, but desperation clawed at her, forcing her into this decaying hell. Shadows pooled like dark puddles between the towering shelves, and the faintest drop of water echoed through the suffocating silence. It was a labyrinth, and every instinct screamed at her to turn back. This was no ordinary job. As she took her first steps into the sprawling expanse, a chill settled in her bones. The cold air licked her skin, sending shivers racing down her spine. The dim overhead lights flickered weakly. They buzzed ominously as if signaling a warning. Her mind buzzed, too, with anxious thoughts of bills, groceries, and her 2 children at home, asleep and dependent on her. But that haunting whisper of doubt thrummed louder. What was she walking into? At that moment, something caught her eye, an anonymous note slipping between the racks. She snatched it up, feeling an inexplicable dread pool in her stomach. Trust no one. Those 3 words pierced her heart, echoing like a death knell. Panic surged. Who had written this? A chill swept over her, mingling with the fear she fought to suppress. She tried to focus on her tasks. Co-workers passed by, but the once warm nods now felt cold, filled with something dark. Whispers drifted through the air, fevered and urgent. Did you hear? He vanished, just disappeared. Her co-worker's eyes darted around, and fear tightened like a noose in her gut. A missing worker. Alone in this warehouse. It felt like a nightmare unfolding around her. Every shelf she passed seemed to loom closer, shadows flitted just out of her sight, and those invisible eyes felt horrific, lurking beneath her skin. She recalled the local rumors, the specter that haunted places of betrayal and deceit. Her breath grew shallow as she shuffled between the products piled high. Could it be true? Was she trapped in a tale of horror? Suddenly, she noticed a familiar face slipping in and out of the corners of her vision. A face she thought she had left behind. Panic gripped her throat, cold and unyielding. The tension thickened, her heart raced. What was this person doing here? Did they connect to the whispers? To the missing worker? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah's skin prickled as the weight of dread suffocated her. The shadows swelled, whispers turned sharper, like daggers aimed at her sanity. Every step felt heavier, a cruel reminder of her isolation and the terrifying realization closing in that she might lose everything, her kids, her life, the truth buried in this haunted warehouse. She had to unravel the nightmare. As she confronted the familiar face, words caught in her throat, an unearthly chill swept in. Would she uncover the secrets gripping this forsaken place before darkness consumed her, or was she fated to join the souls lost within its rotten grasp? The familiar face solidified from the shadows, revealing Jared, the man who had once filled her life with laughter and light before everything collapsed into chaos. Surging emotions threatened to drown her: joy, confusion, fear. What was he doing here, in this desolate warehouse? She had to swallow back the urge to run, instead forcing her legs to move forward. Jared? Her voice trembled. What are you doing here? He looked different, hollowed cheeks, wide eyes that flickered with dread. Sarah, you can't be here, he gasped, urgency lacing every syllable. You need to leave, now. Leave? Panic thrummed in her chest. Why? What is going on? He shot a glance over his shoulder, eyes darting like a prey animal sensing danger. They're watching. They know. His voice was a frantic whisper, barely audible over the constant hum of overhead lights. Before she could respond, the lights dimmed further for a moment, a strange shudder rippling through the warehouse. For a heartbeat, they flickered out completely before reluctantly reigniting. But something had changed. The air felt different, thick, almost malevolent. "Sarah, listen to me," Jared said urgently. "We're not safe here." "I didn't want to believe it, but people are disappearing for a reason. I thought I could come back, see if things were different, but it's worse. There's something in the walls, something evil." Her heart raced as she registered his words. She had come hoping for a job, a way to provide for her kids, not to walk into a horror movie. "What do you mean, something evil?" He opened his mouth to answer, but then it happened. A low rumble, like distant thunder, echoed through the warehouse. It vibrated through her bones, and a cold gust of wind swept past her, trailing the smell of decay. Suddenly, the metal shelves clanged as if shaken by an invisible force. Her instincts screamed at her to run. "Jared!" she shouted, trying to catch his attention, but he seemed lost, his eyes fixated on something behind her. "Sarah! Get behind me!" he screamed as something moved in the shadows, a ripple of darkness forming and contorting, illuminating faintly in the dim light. She couldn't turn. She couldn't breathe. The air froze as the shadow expanded, enveloping a corner of the room. A guttural whisper rose from it, unrecognizable yet weighty, echoing around the warehouse, wrapping her in an inescapable grip. The words seemed to slither into her mind, pulling her closer to the edge of panic. "Trust no one, you'll never escape." "No!" Sarah shouted, the fear breaking free. She took a tentative step back, yet the motion felt like stepping into quicksand. The whispering grew louder, closer, and her heart hammered in her chest, pricking her skin with icy awareness. "Run!" Jared yelled, his voice barely piercing through the cacophony that threatened to crush her sanity. "We have to get out." But her feet refused to obey. She was anchored in terror, paralyzed by the overwhelming dread that surrounded her. Then her instincts kicked in. She turned, eyes wide, blocking out the shadows pulling at her mind. She had to escape. She couldn't let the darkness end. As they bolted through the maze of aisles, Sarah's mind raced. The way out loomed ahead, yet the echo of the warehouse whispered relentlessly, "Trust no one." One thought consumed her: was she running from liberation or deeper into the abyss? What awaited them outside? Would they be able to flee the malevolence lurking just beneath the surface, or was it already too late? "Just keep running," Jared yelled, pulling her back to reality as they tore through the darkness, desperate to escape the clutches of an unspeakable terror. But shadows writhed in a hungry dance, and she could feel them creeping closer, pushing her toward an unknown fate. What would happen if they escaped? Would they be free, or would the warehouse's curse follow them into the night? As they reached the end of the aisle, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. A figure loomed beyond the dim light at the exit, waiting. Would they find salvation or stumble into a new nightmare? Heart pounding, Sarah's gaze widened at the figure standing just outside the exit. A man, tall and gaunt, silhouetted against the faint outline of muted light, wore a wide-brimmed hat that obscured his features. Yet the glint of his eyes, sharp and alert, cut through the shadows. A chill wound its way through her spine, gnawing at her resolve. "Who is that?" she gasped, barely able to form the words. The reality of her situation crashed over her like icy waves, every heartbeat met with a pounding sense of dread. "I don't know," Jared whispered, his voice trembling. "But we can't let him see us." The figure shifted, as if sensing their presence. His head tilted slightly, catching the dim light, revealing the gaunt hollows of his cheeks. The warehouse seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the tension to break in a snap. Then came his voice, a low rasp that echoed softly, chilling Sarah to her bones. "Don't be afraid." His tone was disarmingly calm, a stark contrast to the growing fear swirling within her. "I just want to talk." "Talk?" Jared said, edged with incredulity. "We're leaving." Before she could relay her thoughts, the man stepped closer, the light flickering as shadows danced around him like hungry wolves. You think you can run? The darkness, it doesn't let go so easily. Jared moved to shield her, instinct kicking in as he pushed Sarah behind him. Stay back. We don't want anything to do with you. But the figure tilted his head, an unsettling grin spreading across his lips. You're here for answers, aren't you? You want to know why people vanish? His laugh was soft yet haunting, resonating through the empty expanse of the warehouse. A flicker of resolve ignited within Sarah. We don't need to know, she muttered under her breath, desperation clawing at her mind. No. He replied, inching even closer, the malice in his eyes wrapping around her like a vice. What if I told you your lives depend on the truth? Jared's grip tightened on her arm, pulling her away as the world warped around them, bodies in a warehouse, shadows alive, and the promise of the unseen lurking nearby. Come on. We need to go. Do you hear the whispers? The man continued, undeterred, his voice an insidious balm that seemed to smooth over their fears, even as it fed them. They know you're here. They want you to stay. Jared's hand trembled against Sarah's wrist, and she could see the uncertainty carved lines on his face. He glanced back at the exit. We have to push past him and get out. The shadows moved again, a ripple through the dark. It felt alive, closing in like a sinister storm. Sarah could almost feel tendrils creeping closer, wrapping around the warmth of her heart. Leave, and you will never understand, the man hissed. You will only find the truth in suffering. No. Sarah screamed, breaking the spell hanging heavy in the air. We're not staying here. With a sudden surge of courage, she bolted forward, pulling Jared with her. They rushed toward the exit, the figure's laughter trailing behind them, filling the warehouse with an echo of mocking despair. But just as they reached the end of the last aisle, thick shadows surged around them, engulfing her in their cold embrace. The exit was within sight, but as they dashed forward, an unseen force jerked her back, tearing her from Jared's grasp. Sarah! He shouted, panic drenching his voice. The moment froze. She turned just enough to see the same figure, impossibly closer now, with arms reaching, darkness pouring from his fingertips, threatening to pull her into the unknown. Trust no one echoed in her mind, a mantra of dread. But darkness had a way of silencing itself, and Sarah could only scream as the shadows whispered promises of hell, claiming her very essence. Would she be lost forever, swallowed by the evil at the warehouse's heart? Could Jared find her and break free from the impending doom? The air thickened with dread, and as the shadows wove their sinister web, Sarah realized she had to make a choice. Remain and fight against the formidable forces haunting every corner of this cursed place, or let fate decide her demise. In those final moments before everything went dark, she clung to one desperate thought. How far would she go to survive? Then, deafening silence fell, and Sarah vanished into the abyss, leaving a haunting question behind: if evil has a voice, will anyone survive to hear it? Jared watched in terror as Sarah was pulled back into the suffocating darkness. The shadows writhed around her, swallowing her screams like a thick fog rolling over a lonely town. Every instinct in him screamed to rescue her, yet he felt paralyzed, flickering between panic and disbelief. The figure stepped forward, the twisted smile leaving a bitter taste on his tongue. Don't you want her back? The man rasped, his voice dripping with contempt. I can give you what you desire. Get away from her. Jared shouted, rage boiling in his veins. The warehouse dimmed around him, and the air grew thick with an unnatural pressure, squeezing his chest tighter and tighter. Such fury, the man crooned, seeming to relish the fear and anger pouring from Jared. But it won't change anything. You're already trapped in the web of shadows. Understand, it's not about desire, it's about what you're willing to sacrifice to save the ones you love. The shadows twirled gracefully in response, casting grotesque shapes along the warehouse walls. Jared's heart thundered in his ears. He didn't have time to think. He had to move before darkness closed around him too. Sarah! He yelled, the name escaping his lips like a prayer. I'm coming for you. Just then, cold fingers brushed against his arm. He spun around, pure terror coursing through him as dark, slithering forms crept out from the corners of the room, swirling around his legs like live snakes. The rush of adrenaline coursed through his body, igniting a fire in his belly, a primal urge to fight. Foolish boy, the man mocked, the glint in his eyes glimmering ill will. You think bravery will save you? You'll all be lost together, plunged into eternal despair. With a feral scream, Jared surged toward the shadows that pulled at his feet, forcing himself toward the faint glimmer of light at the exit. He stumbled, tearing at the creeping darkness and feeling it tear back, like fingernails scraping against his skin, cold and suffocating. Sarah! He cried out again, hearing only the echo of his own voice bounce mockingly off the abandoned walls. The edges of his vision began to warp, the light at the exit seeming to pulse and flicker like a dying star. He couldn't let the shadows have him too. Pushing harder, he felt the darkness clawing at him, 1,000 whispers merging into a dreadful cacophony, curling around his mind. Join her, Jared, they cooed. Join her in the truth you cannot fathom, no. He shouted, gritting his teeth. The lights flickered again, a beacon of hope. He could see the outline of the exit, the door swinging lightly as though beckoning him. He raced forward, propelled by a mixture of hope and terror, but just as he reached for it, the figure lunged, catching him by the shoulders. The pressure of the darkness squeezed him like a vice, and he felt the bitter chill seep into his bones. You can't escape, the man whispered, his breath like ice. Our fates are intertwined. Jared struggled, summoning every ounce of strength he had. He could feel the figure's grip tightening, dragging him back toward the shadows. He caught a glimpse of Sarah, her eyes wide and begging from the depths of darkness. Fate doesn't decide, Jared gasped, shaking off the figure's grasp. I do. With a final surge, he broke free, flinging himself past the threshold of light. Pain shot through him as he felt the shadows lash out one last time, but he didn't stop. He sprinted forward, abandoning all doubts and despair. As the blinding light enveloped him, Jared felt a rush of hope that almost hung like a fragile thread. But as quickly as it came, it fractured upon his realization Sarah was still trapped in the void, and the shadows knew it. He stumbled into the unwelcoming chill of the outside world, gasping for breath. Turning back, he faced the warehouse and the shifting darkness that wrapped itself around its edges like a living, breathing thing. The laughter echoed in the distance, taunting. Save her, Jared, or suffer her fate. He turned away, heart racing, knowing the battle was far from over. What price would he pay to reclaim her? The question loomed like a shadow in his mind as he set off on the dark road ahead, the chill of uncertainty sinking deep into his bones. Jared stumbled down the cracked pavement, breath rattling in his chest like a caged bird. The icy air bit at his skin, but nothing compared to the gnawing dread that churned in his gut. Each step sent shivers up his spine, whispering reminders of what he just escaped. The darkness still clung to him, a desperate shadow that hugged his heels, urging him to turn back. But Sarah, she was still trapped. That he cursed under his breath, muscles burning with anxiety. What could he do? A small voice in the back of his mind echoed the man's words, "What are you willing to sacrifice?" What could he even offer? Life was built on choices, but this felt like a game with twisted rules. A soft glow caught his eye, a flickering streetlight up ahead. Its weak luminescence barely penetrated the night, yet it promised safety. He moved toward it, cautiously. As he reached the light, his gaze skipped back to the ominous outline of the warehouse. The shadows still writhed and shifted, a dark promise of something waiting. The laughter returned, a sinister melody echoing across the empty street. Jared shook his head, as if he could dislodge the sound. It wasn't just in his ears, it was in his mind. Images of Sarah, her eyes wide with terror, danced before him. Skin prickling, he pulled out his phone, desperate for a signal, a lifeline. But it was dead, lifeless as the world around him. With each pulsating silence, the weight of his failure bore down harder. That familiar panic surged again. Think, Jared, think, he muttered. An idea flickered like the streetlight above. He needed to find help. But who? He fished around in his memory for names. Old friends, co-workers, maybe someone who could call the cops. He wasn't ready to admit this was a fight against forces he couldn't possibly understand. That he took off down the street, the shadows behind him stretching, curling, reaching. The laughter morphed into a wild cackle, surrounding him, dancing just out of sight. What would it take to pull Sarah from the depths? Was he strong enough? His feet pounded against the pavement, breathing heavy and labored. He turned a corner, nearly crashing into a dumpy diner that looked like it hadn't seen a customer in ages. Neon lights buzzed erratically, casting ghostly shadows that flickered around the cracked windows. He pushed through the door and the musty scent of stale coffee and grease engulfed him. The diner was empty, except for a solitary figure slumped in the corner booth. Jared squinted, the place dim and low-lit, but as his eyes adjusted, he recognized the man, Mike, an old friend and a red-eyed shadow of his former self. Jared. Mike's voice came out strained, barely above a whisper. What happened to you? He looked up, his face a map of worry. Sarah's in trouble, Mike. I need your help. Mike's eyes darted to the door, heart pounding audibly in the silence. You shouldn't have come here. Not now. We have to do something. I can't leave her not like this. A shake of Mike's head sent a chill down Jared's spine. You have to listen to me. You don't know what you're dealing with, man. It's not just shadows, it's alive. You want to save her, you need to know the truth. Truth? What truth? Mike leaned closer, his voice low. It's cursed, this place. It wants something from you to let her go. Jared's heart dropped, realization washing over him. What would he have to give? The weight of possibility hung heavy. Was it really possible to defeat what lay in the warehouse? He had to know more. Tell me, Mike, Jared urged, on the brink of despair. What do I need to do? Mike opened his mouth to respond, but just then, the light in the diner flickered, the shadows whispering promises of darkness. A sharp chill coursed through the room. Something was coming. Suddenly, the doors slammed open, and a gust of wind, dark and cutting, burst into the diner. Laughter echoed again, more insistent now, as figures began to seep into the edges of the light. Jared felt his grip on reality snap tight, fear racing in his veins. The shadows had followed him. The diner was a trap. What price was he ready to pay now? He had no time to think as the darkness closed in. The choice slipped through his fingers like sand. In the flickering lights of his shattered hope, desperation clawed within him. Could he uncover the secrets of the shadows and find a way to rescue Sarah? Jared's heart raced, adrenaline flooding his system as those dark figures crept further into the diner. Shadows twisted, taking on amorphous shapes that flickered at the periphery of his vision. The laughter grew louder, resonating off the cracked tiled walls, a demonic choir chanting his name. Mike! He shouted, panic lacing his voice. What do we do? But Mike's face had gone pale, his eyes wide with fear. We can't stay here. He lunged toward the door, but the minute he moved, the shadows lunged too. They swirled, dancing in grotesque formations, blocking the exit. Jared took a step back, mouth dry as bones. It was like a nightmarish tide, rising and falling in unpredictable waves. Desperation clawed at his throat, and for a moment, he thought he might scream. Instead, he let instinct kick in, surveying the diner for anything he could use. Look! He pointed to the kitchen, a faint glow emanating from behind the door. Maybe we can get to the back exit. Mike blinked, nodding slowly. We need to move now. They rushed towards the kitchen, shadows slithering behind them, whispering secrets of despair. The moment they entered the cramped space, the air grew thick, the smell of grease almost suffocating. Jared's lungs burnt. He fumbled for the handle of the exit door, but it was stuck, an immovable slab of cold steel. Frantic, he pushed harder, shoulders battering against it. It's stuck. Help me. Mike tugged at the door too, panic rising. Come on, come on. The laughter transformed into a cacophony of jeers, echoing off the walls, drowning them in its malice. You think you can escape? It taunted. Not here, not now. With a violent shove, the door finally creaked open. They stumbled into an alleyway, the cool, damp air wrapping around them like a broken promise of safety. But the shadows were relentless. They poured out of the kitchen behind them, thick and insatiable. Go! Jared yelled, nudging Mike forward. They sprinted, hearts pounding, through the narrow alley, feelers of darkness grasping at their heels. Jared's mind raced. Should he turn back for Sarah? The thought gripped him, even as he sprinted. Jared, don't think about her now. Mike shouted, glancing over his shoulder. We need to find the light will save us. Do you even know what that means? Jared snapped back. What does it take to sacrifice? Something valuable. Mike's eyes widened further as the shadows nearly overtook them. We have to find a way to break the curse. As they rounded another corner, they stumbled into a bustling street, fluorescent lights flickering above. But it felt hollow, void of warmth. People moved past them, oblivious to the horror chasing Jared and Mike. What is this place? Jared gasped, chest heaving. They're not real, Mike huffed. Just illusions. We need to keep moving. The true light is ahead, but the shadows will follow. A blinding flash erupted from the end of the street, casting a silver glow that pierced through the darkness. Instinctively, they both felt drawn towards it, a beacon of desperate hope. Come on. Jared urged, pulling Mike along. They sprinted, leaving the crowd behind, the laughter now a menacing echo. But as they approached the light, the shadows shifted again, thickening, swirling like a tempest. You can't outrun the truth. They jeered, chilling whispers wrapping around Jared. What was the truth? Fear tightened its grip on him. At that moment, he could feel it, the price lurking in a darker corner, ready to be paid. That he tugged Mike as they neared the brightness. What if it demands something from us? What is the cost? Among the chaos of horror, a single thought crystallized in his mind. Could facing the light mean losing everything he held dear, including the very essence of who he was? Time seemed to stretch, the moment suspended like a fragile promise. As they neared the flash, Jared's resolve began to wane. Would the light ultimately bring salvation or annihilation? Just ahead in the brilliance lay either a new beginning or the end of everything he was fighting for. Jared! Mike shouted, pulling him back from the brink of decision. But the shadows were closing in. The trapped screams of Sarah echoed in his mind, drawing him closer, closer still to the blinding pulse of light. Do you truly wish to face what lies beyond? A voice whispered, sliding through the air like silk, seductive and cold. Jared hesitated, heart pounding as he stood at the boundary of fear and hope. Could he accept what the shadows demanded? He had to choose, and fast. Jared's breath hitched as he stood there, wavering between the encroaching shadows and the blinding light ahead, a chasm of uncertainty opening beneath his feet. Mike's grip on his arm tightened. Don't hesitate. Mike urged, his voice straining against the thick tension. Go towards the light. We have no other choice. But Jared was paralyzed, caught in a web of thoughts and fear. The voices swirled around him, thickening the air, the laughter mocking him. They knew his name, knew his past, and now they whispered truths he hadn't dared confront. What must I give? He mumbled, the question spilling from his lips like a desperate prayer. Just run. Mike screamed, pulling Jared forward. The shadows lunged, tendrils reaching out, grazing the backs of their legs, filling the alley with a cold, desperate gloom. Jared propelled himself forward into the light, as if chased by the very essence of his fears. The brightness enveloped them, burning away the darkness, but only for a heartbeat. The kaleidoscope of illumination morphed abruptly into a sterile warehouse, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, cold and unwelcoming. They found themselves alone on a vast, empty floor scattered with shadowy crates. The air chilled, and the laughter dimmed to a dull roar, leaving only silence in its wake. What just happened? Mike panted, trying to catch his breath, eyes darting around as if the walls were alive. Every corner seemed to leer at them, the gloom threatening just beyond sight. I don't know. Jared strained, confusion meshing with dread. Were we ever safe? Look. Mike pointed to an array of wooden crates, their surfaces worn and splintered. We should check those. Maybe they LL. But before he could finish, a figure materialized from the shadows, tall and draped in tattered robes that flowed like smoke. Its face was obscured, a void where features should have been. Welcome, trespassers. The voice dripped with malice, echoing through the cavernous space. It sent an icy shiver racing down Jared's spine. You seek the light but tread upon darkness. What will you sacrifice for salvation? Stay back. Mike shouted, pushing Jared behind him as if it would shield them from whatever horror was unfolding before them. Jared felt his heart hammering against his ribs. We don't have anything. He called out. Just let us go. Are you so sure? The figure replied, a wisp of laughter curling from its lips. For each moment you remain here, the cost grows. Feel the weight of your decisions. The crates surrounding them began to tremble. Rusty hinges creaked, and unearthly sounds emanated from within. Jared's throat was dry, fear pooling in his stomach. What is happening? He choked out. The figure tilted its head. What you desire most is locked inside. But to reach it, you must face the truth of your past and make an offering. What truth? Jared asked, voice trembling. I just want to leave. Everything comes at a price, it hissed, insistently stepping closer. Whether it be pain, fear, or something you cherish. Before Jared could respond, the nearest crate exploded open, splintering wood and revealing a vortex of images swirling inside a storm of memories and choices long buried. He saw Sarah, her smile frozen in time, then darker moments too, regrets and nightmares he'd hidden deep within himself. No! He shouted, taking a step back, but the figure advanced, looming larger, boundless darkness wrapping around them like a shroud. Will you confront them, or will you turn away? The choice is yours, but do not be deceived. Every moment wasted will draw the shadows closer. Jared felt sweat trickle down his spine, his mind racing. Choices unfurled before him, terrifying paths they could take, each as tangible and treacherous as the figure before him. Mike, he said, panic igniting hope, we can face this, together. But Mike stood frozen, eyes glazed over, lost in horror as shadows slithered from the crates towards his feet. I can't, he gasped, I can't do this. A dark pulse vibrated through the warehouse, a message that their time was running out. Each tick of the clock whispered of inevitability and dread. Jared! Mike cried desperately, shaking himself from his stupor. The light. We can still find it if we give them what they want. What do they want? Jared's voice trembled, locking eyes with the figure, who hovered mere steps away, ever ready to claim. The shadows inched closer, shadows of forgotten choices and regrets entwining around them like vines. Time was slipping, urgency thickening the air. In his heart, a single realization ignited: sacrificing one's past could mean losing everything, yet not choosing could lead to a fate beyond imagination. Would he reach inside, confront his deepest fears, and take the gamble? Or would he fall victim to his own darkness? As the laughter crescendoed once more and shadows danced, Jared knew, the light might be salvation, but the journey would be a descent into hell. He had to decide before it was too late. The room closed in around them, the air thick with dread and the stench of rot. Jared could barely breathe. He looked at Mike, whose eyes were wide with terror, an open window to a soul caught in a tempest. The figure loomed closer, shifting ever so slightly, its presence igniting a pulse of fear that made Jared's skin crawl. The sound of cracking wood echoed as the crates trembled, shivers of memories spilling out like phantoms. You have only minutes left, the figure taunted, an anticipation building in its voice. What will it be? Jared's heart hammered each beat a countdown. Shadows swirled, wrapping tightly around Mike's shins, dragging him toward the figure with inescapable force. You don't have to do this. Jared shouted, voice raw with panic. Fight it. Mike's mouth moved, but no sound came out. Gone was his fire, leaving only the vacant shell of someone who had once been a friend. Jared felt a surge of desperation, a mixture of anger and fear twisting within him. Get away from him. He cried, eyes steely and resolute. The figure laughed, a low, rumbling sound. You think you can protect him? Pain unshared is agony multiplied. Are you willing to suffer, for him? Will he choose you, or abandon you to darkness? The thought sliced through Jared like ice. His breath caught in his throat. Could he save Mike? Or would it cost him everything? From the crates, more memories erupted, a cacophony of emotions. A child's laughter, a scream, echoes of choices that had led him here. He saw Sarah again, her face twisted in anguish as the memories continued to whirl. Would confronting them set her free, or seal her fate? Focus, Jared. He urged himself, stepping forward. I need to confront this. Loosening his grip on the illusion of safety, he took the plunge. You want a sacrifice? I'll give you my guilt, my pain. A cold wind howled through the warehouse, and the figure froze, momentarily captivated. Such interesting offerings, but is it enough? It hissed, tilting its head as shadows writhed with anticipation. Just tell me what to do. Jared yelled, heart thundering against his chest. The figure moved, its presence distorting the light around them. You must reach into the depths of your truth. Only then can you wield the power of salvation. A wave of darkness swirled in response, shadows beckoning him towards the gaping maw of the crates. Do it, Jared. Mike urged, his voice wavering as the shadows continued their cruel ascent up his legs. Taking a deep breath, Jared approached the nearest crate. The rattling echoes inside were maddening, a symphony of hyped grief begging to be acknowledged. He felt like he was standing on a precipice, the weight of his past vying for dominance as he grasped the splintered edge. He slammed the lid open hard, memories pouring out like a flood, visions assaulted him screaming in a storm, hands grasping desperately. Each moment collided, crashing against his consciousness. The regret washed over him, slick and suffocating. Would this torment reclaim his soul, or free him from the shackles of his fears? Just deny it. You'll regret facing those memories. The figure's voice was a sharp knife, attempting to tear at the fragile resolve inside him. No. Jared shouted, wrestling back against the chant of the void. He stared into the essence of his past, pushing through the pain. I won't hide anymore. With that declaration, a bright light erupted from the crate, a burst of warmth and hope. Jared felt the shadows retreat, screaming as they pulled away, fumigating the darkness that had gripped Mike. In that moment, clarity surged through him like electricity. Jared, please. Mike's voice broke through, fragile but alive. Don't leave me. But the shadows weren't done. They surged back, more frantic, hungry for his surrender. Jared chanced a glance at Mike, whose eyes now held a spark of defiance. It reignited a hope within Jared, maybe they could confront the darkness together. Hold on. He yelled, focusing on the light as he reached for Mike. But shadows lunged, trying to reclaim what they just lost. We can do this together. They both grasped for the loose threads of clarity, waiting on the brink, souls entwined in a battle against an all-consuming void. Jared could feel the cold creeping back, the warehouse trembling as if alive, a curse thrumming through its veins. The figure howled, furious, body writhing in an angry storm as it attempted to snatch their resolve. Will you hold on to your light, or will you let the darkness consume you both? Jared's heart raced. He could feel Mike pulling him back, light tugging at their limbs like a second chance. Would they conquer the shadows, or fall victim to their own fears? An unimaginable choice loomed as the warehouse breathed around them. And then it shattered. The warehouse erupted into chaos, crates flew through the air, splintering apart as shadows recoiled from the brightness Jared had unleashed. Each sliver of light sliced through the darkness like a flaming sword, illuminating the nightmarish visions they were desperate to escape. But the figure, its eyes glimmering with fury, roared as it extended its hands, summoning more shadows, more darkness, to close in again. Jared! Mike gasped, straining against the tightening grip of the darkness that threatened to drown him. You have to find the truth. The air crackled with energy, ripping apart the fabric of what Jared thought was real. He threw his head back and screamed, a raw, primal sound that echoed into the void, desperately trying to keep the darkness at bay. I'm trying to save you. The intensity swelled. Shadows chased the light, a terrible choreography of terror and hope. But the laughter of the figure overpowered everything. You can't save the past. You will always be haunted. The truth is a chain wrapped around your throat. That chains of despair wrapped tighter around Jared's heart, squeezing until he thought he might burst. With each pulse, memories struck him, flashes of failed choices, Sarah's face crying in the rain, Mike lying, shattered, afraid. He felt them, each thread of guilt pulling taut, threatening to snap him back into the abyss. No! He screamed, shaking, battering against the sensation. I won't surrender. I choose to face it. I choose to break free. In that moment, something inside of him clicked. The warmth of the light intensified, shifting from a flicker to a raging flame, illuminating every shadow with relentless vigor. Jared closed his eyes, clenching his fists at his sides. He envisioned every painful moment, every haunting regret, and he focused on Mike, on saving him. I will face my own shadows, he proclaimed. The resolve brewed deep within him, igniting a combustion that sent waves of light shooting through the darkness. The figure faltered, its confidence waning as Jared forced open his deepest memories. Each recollection hurt, but he revealed them to the light, calling them out by name: guilt, shame, grief, loss. It was catharsis, and it surged through his veins like liquid fire, breaking the chains the figure had bound him with. Mike broke the surface of fear, eyes wide, breathing heavily as he fought against the shadows creeping up his body. Don't stop, Jared. Push through. We can do this. They were not alone. The shadows coiled tightly around him, but Mike's spirit was coming back to life. He grasped at the remnants of light pouring from Jared, clinging on with determination. Join us. Light burns brighter with two. Jared shouted, channeling every ounce of fear and pain, focusing it around Mike. The combination was a molten rage against the darkness, a fire that clawed its way through despair. Suddenly, the figure convulsed, shadows twisting madly as if caught in a crushing vice of faith and defiance. You dare to challenge me? You will both perish. No. They shouted in unison, a fierce warrior's cry against the encroaching horror. The light engulfed them like a shield, a surge of shared fear transformed into strength, but the darkness screamed back, furious and relentless, as the air crackled with gathering energy. Jared felt the frenzy grow, panic bubbling beneath the surface. The darkness might push back, he could feel its pull. It was desperate, hungry. What now? Jared shouted, panic rising. Finish what you started. Mike yelled back, battle light burning in his eyes. We face this together. They braced against the maelstrom, ready to push through the dark. Jared's heart raced, fingers trembled. The figure, now a swirling storm of shadows, threatened to engulf them both. What would happen to them in a battle against such malevolence? Would they find light, or would they be swallowed whole, lost in their own darkness? The whirlwind of shadows and light was spinning too fast. With one final breath, Jared lunged toward the figure, ready to make the ultimate sacrifice. What? Would they lose? What would it cost them? A decision loomed, and the dread hung heavily in the air waiting for the next moment, the next choice. Would they survive the abyss, or become a part of it forever? Jared thrust himself forward, the weight of impending doom falling heavily on his shoulders. The swirling shadows lashed out, cold tendrils brushing against his skin, but he didn't waver. He clenched his fists, the light inside him flaring in response to the darkness clawing at his resolve. He could feel Mike next to him, their spirits intertwined like vines climbing toward the sun. They were both standing on the edge of survival, but they needed to push through the pain, through the cut of memories and regrets that wanted to pull them down. With each step, Jared recalled Sarah's laughter, her kind smile that once felt like home. It fought to drown his heart in sorrow. He shook his head, focusing on the warmth spiraling within him. We won't lose her. Not again. He shouted, his voice echoing against the chaos surrounding them. The figure loomed larger, its form intermittently flickering in and out of existence as if forgetting itself. You think you can save her? It sneered. Your weaknesses will consume you. Its voice echoed like thunder, filled with the malice of all the regrets they carried. No. Jared roared, fueling his defiance with every fiber of his being. We're not defined by our pasts. We choose to fight. He took another step forward, the brightness within him igniting like a beacon, expanding, filling the room with blinding light. Each painful memory began to dissolve in that brilliance, turning the shadows to dust. Jared's heart raced as he felt Mike take his hand, their determination feeding off one another's strength. Together. Mike urged, the fight blazing in his eyes. Push through. Don't look back. In unison, they surged forward, fueled by anger and love, refusing to let the dark figure smother them. With every ounce of their spirit, they roared, we choose life. We choose hope. The shadows convulsed violently around them, fighting back, but their resolve only strengthened. Jared could see it now, Sarah's face in the edge of his mind, glowing in that radiance of purity and light. You are loved, Sarah. We're coming for you. He yelled, channeling every emotion into a roaring wave of light. The figure writhed, its features contorting with rage. You foolish mortals. You think light will conquer the void? It lunged, darkness spilling from its fingertips like spilling ink, but Jared and Mike stood firm, united in purpose. Face it. Mike said. True light is born from our struggles. We will not be afraid. With one final push, they collided with the figure of darkness, the light cascading outward like a shockwave, consuming everything. Shadows shrieked, fracturing as if meeting their own end. Jared felt the energy course through him, an eruption of warmth filling every crevice of his soul. The laughter twisted into horrific wails and retreated, driven into the abyss. The light grew, illuminated their surroundings, revealing a dazzling whiteness that shattered the darkness, a refuge forged by their shared bravery. Then, that blinding brilliance began to reveal Sarah, emerging through the dispersed shadows, radiant and alive. Jared's heart soared. Sarah! He cried out, tears streaming down his face. Jared, Mike! She exclaimed, eyes lighting up as she stumbled forward, brushing away the lingering remnants of darkness. Her embrace felt like home, grounding them, knitting the last threads of their bonds. We're here, Jared whispered, holding her close, pain melting away. And we'll never let you go again. As the shadows retreated into nothingness, the three stood together, wrapped in the warmth of their unity. The warehouse was silent now, a husk of memories, and beneath their feet, echoes of laughter faded into the past. Thank you, Sarah said, looking up at them, her voice steady yet full of emotion. I thought I had lost you both. We're family, Mike reassured, still shaking from the battle but relieved. And family fights for each other. Together. They stepped out into the radiance, the oppressive cold banishing. Fresh air filled their lungs, the stars twinkling in a cerulean sky, reminders of warmth, resilience, and the promise of brighter tomorrows. What now? Jared asked, turning them towards the horizon. Now we live, Sarah replied, determination flickering in her eyes, her spirit soaring anew. As they looked out toward the vastness of possibility, they knew they had conquered something ancient and terrible. Shadows would always exist, lurking, but they had forged a light strong enough to face anything. This moment, this victory, was theirs, and whatever came next, they would face it together. And as the stars shone brightly, a final whisper lingered in the air: trust each other, don't wait any longer. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this conclusion. And instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. This is the moment to show your support. True fans know the importance of standing together.